Hello, 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 and welcome to another Scoutcast for Gameweek 31, brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, and we are also joined by Seb. How's it going, Seb?
Hey mate, it's going well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. Do you know what? So stress-free setting up for this stream. I literally, I've been ready for hours, absolute hours, Seb.
Yep. That sounds correct. That sounds like my experience too.
Exactly. And we're also joined by Rich. How's it going, Rich?
Yeah, been better, been worse.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah. It's showing good commitment. You were out on the Raz last night at a wedding, weren't you?
Yeah, the whole day, which was topped off by that Liverpool result and then the Reading result today as well.
Oh, lovely. Many Easter eggs this weekend?
I finished them all by Friday.
Did you? I like it. What about you, Seb? Many Easter eggs?
Literally not a one, I think. Although you know how they've been selling them since like January.
Yeah.
So I've been having my fill. But
Yeah.
I don't think I've eaten a single Easter egg this weekend.
Really? Well, I had an Easter egg for every penalty that one of your guys' players missed this weekend. Honestly, I've had so many.
I did think you were looking at a little full.
Own goals as well.
Honestly, like I've had 6 or 7. I can't have any more, lads. So everybody in the chat and everybody that's listening, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've got over 140 people in the chat already. Hopefully that keeps on going up because obviously everybody wants to know about Game Week 31 because we are starting to get into the business end of the season now. We're going to have a look at our points. So we're going to look how we all got on. You can see on the screens we all got red arrows so far, but not chunky red arrows, I wouldn't say. We're going to be looking at the fixtures. You are chunkier than me.
I was like 40k in the week we weren't here.
We'll talk about that in a minute. It's fine. Then we're going to have a look at fixtures. We have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 slides about Jack Grealish to show you. That's right. That's how much of a bandwagon we have for Jack Grealish at the moment. We're going to be looking at free hit 32. Seb has made a free hit 32 team. I have made a free hit 32 differential team. So that's going to be quite interesting to look at. Then we're going to look at our best teams and the community team and finish off with a little bit of a Q&A. So first of all then, let's have a look and see how we got on this week and how that's affected our overall ranks. So for me, I had 68 points. I had Kepa in goal with 3, Zinchenko with 1, Trippier with 2, Estupiñán with 1, Maddison with 2. Oh, dearie me, Maddison. Rashford with 6, and obviously Rashford got injured. We might be talking about that a little bit tonight. Matoma with 2, Saka with 1, Watkins with 7, Haaland, who I brought in and captained with 24 points, and then Kane with 9. So 40 points from my front line, 58 altogether. I had Saka and Zinchenko going into the last game and was thinking, brilliant, here we go. I'm on a slight green anyway. What can go wrong? Ended up with a red, 2 points between them. Lovely stuff. Would have been worse if it hadn't been for Salah's missed penalty as well. And that's a nice little segue on the Rich's team in a second. 800 place red arrow I ended up with, which, to be honest... basically, it's a grey arrow. I'm not too fussed about that. Brought Haaland in and captained him, which I think turned out okay in the end. Rich, moving on to your points. Talk us through it, mate. A few own goals and a few penalty misses.
I know. It's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, I can't moan too much because of the luck I've had in the weeks, prior to this. But yeah, Tony and Salah both missing a penalty, but then they still scored.
Yeah.
Both of their XGs were like 2.2. Which, I mean, it's incredible. I saw some stat that it's Salah's highest ever XG in a game.
God.
Obviously, having a penalty is going to help that. But yeah, 55 points, 10k red arrow. It's not the end of the world. I mean, there's a few things you could complain about. I mean, Matoma and McAllister. Obviously, I had McAllister bench. They could have, done double digits themselves. I think Salah and Tony were unlucky not to get double digits.
Yeah.
I did end up bringing in Haaland, and that was very, very last minute, as I'm sure you'll be able to attest to. I think it was about 15 minutes before the deadline.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad I did that. However, I mean, he didn't massively outscore Kane because that's who I had to remove.
Was that for free or?
It was 3 points difference.
No. Was it for a hit or for free?
Oh no, it was for free. It was for free.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm glad I did it. However, I kind of do miss Kane, and that's why I was so desperate for Salah to outscore Kane.
So you're without Saka and Kane
going
into Game Week 31.
I'm not too worried about it. I mean,
No?
I just,
You didn't sound very convincing then.
I do want Saka back. Saka's the one I really do want back.
Yeah.
I think if I had Kane, it would be my last week with him. However, I mean, I am fearful of that with his ownership as well. I mean, he looks. If it wasn't for Haaland, I think he'd be the obvious captain for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. 10k red though, like you said, and actually you've had a lot of gains recently, and you said moving into some of these game weeks, you knew you were going to get some red arrows, but a 10k red you can handle, can't you?
I can. It's the missed penalties that are annoying me. I mean, I've had 3 in 4 weeks because I had that Ward-Prowse one as well. So
I love it because obviously we've all been going on about you've got to own the penalty takers for these things, but obviously we don't think about the fact that if you own the penalty taker, they might miss the penalty as well.
And
it's
every
just
time there's a
happening.
penalty, either you or Sab, either you or Seb send a WhatsApp saying penalty to whoever.
Yeah,
and it always seems to be my player taking it. And I think that apart from the Ward-Prowse one, they've always missed.
it's literally, there's only 2 times we spontaneously message Rich, and it's either when his players missed a penalty or when somebody's talking about goalkeepers. That's the only times we message Rich now.
And my goalkeeper scored 9 goals this week.
Just as well you talked about him a lot, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like I've done the research. I've had an assist and an own goal in the last 2 weeks. So
Lovely stuff. And Seb, talking about red arrows, you had the most sizable red arrow, but it was at, what was it, about 20k?
Yeah, it's like 44 to, what am I, 65, 66?
Yeah, it's about 20k. So talk us through your team then, my friend.
I mean, hey, we know the story, right? So Kepa and goal, Trippier, Chilwell, Botman, McAllister, Rashford captain. Come back to that. Fernandez, Salah, Watkins vice captain, Tony and Kane. Bench of Steele, Matoma, Shaw and Gabriel. So nothing wrong on the bench. I wasn't able to do Kane to Haaland for free, so it would have been a -4 for me. So Kane to Haaland would have been a net negative for my team. However, of course, let's say I would have captained Haaland, so it wouldn't have been a net negative had I done that. I could also have done Tony, which also would have been a -4, of course. That would have worked out better, but I would have had to sacrifice more elsewhere. Maybe a Fernandez. Hey, maybe I've done Fernandez to Grealish. That would have been beautiful as well.
Sure.
Might have been a defensive move. Realistically, this feels like, I mean, especially since Christmas, I feel like I have mentioned when I've done something I thought wasn't a good move, like Foden. You know, I thought maybe I could catch a rise there, but quite the opposite. It went quite badly, and that was a poor decision on my half. This week maybe feels like the opposite, if you'll allow me to say. Like, taking a hit for Haaland, I don't think was my best move, so I rolled. I'll get Haaland next week. This isn't like anti-Haaland. Wish I could have him, just couldn't quite. But given I then gave the captaincy to Rashford, I had Kane, I had Tony, Salah as well there. That's who was like a last-minute transfer last week, obviously with the Saka news. That's pretty brutal because I think, no, this didn't happen, so I'm not saying I deserve it. But this was a team that was very close to, instead of being 65k, being like 15k this week, even if Haaland had scored. Like Haaland scoring too as everyone's captain, no problem. But Rashford could have had a brace there. Fernandez would have assisted a couple of those. Salah not only getting his huge XG, but missing a penalty, which takes points off us. Tony also, what was it, 1 rule down and 1 missed penalty?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying all of those things should have gone my way, because then I'd be going like, oh, I've been unlucky to maximum luck. But it definitely feels like the brutal end of it there. But down to 65k isn't too bad, right? If that's going to be my worst decision versus outcome of the run-in, I'd like to think 50k is open for me. But yeah, whoops-a-daisy. I don't feel too bad of it though, because like the moves I made, fair enough. I think they made sense. I'd do it again, and I'll get Haaland next week.
It's just mad how this is the first week in ages, like, that we haven't used in bench boost or wildcard, whatever it is, and we've all sat here with red arrows. Yeah. But there's such small red arrows that actually, you know, I think it's Seb that said this to me not that long ago, saying you're gonna have weeks where you get the reds. There's gonna be weeks where everybody else is like, you know, is making a few moves, and that's exactly what's happened. Chilwell's a really tough one. What's he now got? 3 points in his last 4 games.
Oh yeah, something like that. I mean, he's come close. I've not managed to watch their matches, but he's come close a few times from what I hear. Yeah. Probably not just in terms of, you know, the things you'll see in the numbers, but I'm guessing he hovers around those areas as well. Although more of a back 4 now, right? Reece James has been unreal. Again, looking at the numbers, I've not managed to watch the matches. Reece James has been unreal the last couple, from what I've seen. Once from centre back, like right centre back in a back 3, and once last match from right back. So worth noting, if Lampard, for reasons, is now going to play a back 4, maybe they're a little less attractive. Although based on the last match, maybe not.
Yeah, very interesting there. Chilwell, I still feel really bad for any owners. I still feel like there was some hauls in there that have been missed, but what can you do? These Chelsea wing backs, they really are feast or famine, aren't they? Right, let's have a look at some fixtures then. Let's get away from these Red Arrow teams and look at some fixtures. So here are the fixtures from Lego Mane. You can see that we obviously have the blank game week in game week 32 that we will be talking about a lot. And I was thinking that when we were setting up this stream, that it looks like we're focusing on game week 32 a lot more than 31, but it's because kind of 31 just kind of happens now, but we have to be thinking about 32 more than 31, if anything else. So we will be talking about it a little bit tonight, obviously. Whether you're on free hit or whether you're not on free hit, there's going to be a lot of content tonight that can help you out with game week 32. And then you can see obviously game week 34 being the big double as well, with a lot of teams that blank in game week 32. So it's going to be interesting talking about all of that, and obviously just having the long-term view there. Seb, when we're looking at it there, anything that kind of jumps out at you? But I know we're going to be talking about a few things anyway, but anything that kind of jumps out at you looking at the fixture list now?
I mean, I think it's what we've identified, right? We're looking for 32 for free hit or not, as we'll discuss. Doubles in 34, potential doubles to come. I think later rather than sooner were the percentages last time I checked. The one thing maybe, I guess, is, we're not going to look at 31 that much tonight. Maybe just with our transfers. Go watch. There'll be other streams like Burning Questions. Doubtless we'll look at stuff. Other people are there to fill in the holes that we don't manage to do tonight. But maybe that's where we'll get caught out. Maybe, we're going to be focused on 32, free hit, not free hit. I know Rich has been trying not to. And it'll be something in 31 that maybe we'll miss, which is what I'm scanning these fixtures now, thinking, what am I not set up for?
Yeah, exactly. And Rich, one thing that a lot of people might not, I mean, we've spoken about it a lot already, but if you look at those grey fixtures there for Man City, Chelsea, Man United and West Ham, all of their game week 31 fixtures are sandwiched by those European commitments. Man City especially have it, and Chelsea really, both having ridiculously tough opposition there in Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. Is that in the back of your mind a little bit as well?
It does. I mean, I've mentioned it a couple of times now, but it terrifies me not having an Arsenal attacker, because obviously West Ham are one of the teams you mentioned.
Yeah.
And they've got those 2 games against Ghent, which are sandwiched between the game against Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
That really does worry me. I mean, I've got 2 Arsenal defenders, but not having like a Saka, a Martinelli, someone like that. I mean, I was shocked when I saw Saka's effective ownership at the weekend. It was still over 70%.
Yeah.
I think I obviously, because we had that leak, I moved Bruno out for Saka. I thought it was a much more popular move than it was.
Yeah.
I think you were very, very unlucky, obviously, to only get 1 point from him yesterday. I mean, if Martinelli had fed him through, you would have been absolutely delighted and had a big haul there. So I do think there could be an argument, and especially if you're not using chips, to have 3 Arsenal, because obviously the free hit in 32, everyone's going to have triple Arsenal, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So if you haven't got the 3 now, maybe you could look at bringing in an Arsenal midfielder. I know that seems like something we were doing, earlier in the season. But yeah, that's the thing. Looking at that worries me. But for my particular team,
I do worry about United as well. I feel like we're slowly getting chipped away at in terms of injuries and rotation, and like Shaw's out, might play midweek, might play at the weekend or whatever, but he's out. Obviously, we've got these United players in looking at 34. A lot of them might not even get there.
Yeah, 2 of them are potentially injured. Bruno's been playing deeper.
I mean,
would you be bringing him in now?
Well, that's exactly it. Like, a lot of people with Bruno are looking at him thinking, I don't want him, especially when they want Salah, they want Haaland. He's that cash cow that people are looking at. Rashford, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of different rumours. One rumour is he could be back in a couple of weeks. One rumour is it could be season over. Like, there's lots of different things going on with Rashford. And all of a sudden we get to game week 34, he might not have any United
Would I be wrong in saying I thought there was a chance he was for this weekend? Have I misread that or not seen that? Like, when I say a chance, I'm not saying someone said he was fit.
I've heard very
I
different
thought,
rumours,
a hope or... Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah.
So I guess our advice there is hold on till later in the week.
I thought we were going to find out today, to be fair, but we didn't.
Yeah.
And it's less than 3 weeks until game week 34 starts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not a long time at all. If he's going to be out at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It feels like a decision you want to make now, because if especially if you're free hitting in 32, you need to use a transfer this week.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what's scary is if you're free hitting in 32, you've got 1 transfer between now and game week 34. No, 2 transfers, haven't you?
2, yeah.
So, and actually that doesn't sound like a lot if you've got some injuries or if you've got a Bruno or so, whatever it is. 2 transfers doesn't feel like a lot all of a sudden, especially when you've got players like Maddison. But we'll get on to him in a bit as well. So, yeah, interesting with those fixtures. But obviously, the 2 big game weeks we're thinking about are the blank game week in 32 and the game week 34, which is the big double as well. Moving on to Grealish and Seb, I'm going to move over to you because we've got 4 slides here. And I want to get through all 4 slides.
He's just got such nice hair.
It's obviously not
they're
just a picture
they're
of
just
Grealish
4
on
slides
each
of just,
one,
one from the right, one from the left, one from the top, one with the
like
downlighting.
Like just his shins on one of them as well. Yeah. But we've got here so the first one we brought up is the table of midfielders and where Grealish kind of stands in terms of midfielders, in terms of his XG, his XA, and his XGI per 90 as well. Just talk us through this because he's about halfway down this list, isn't he?
So, yeah, just to preface this as well, I guess, the way this is kind of, we named it in our notes, the Grealish section. But the reason there's so much on this as well, it kind of, when I was looking into this, it came a bit of like, okay, let's look at midfielders in general for an idea of both how Grealish is doing, replacements for Rashford. They should all wrap, we could call this a Rashford replacement section as well if we wanted to wrap this together. The one thing it doesn't have, like we've had in the past, is the fixtures looking forward, but we have just looked at that so we can compare the two. What this table shows, and we have a little graphical look as well in a moment, is it's ordered by XGI per 90 for the season. And like you say, yeah, Grealish about in the middle, right next to Foden there. Rashford just ahead. Messi Jr., which is McAllister, is the one just behind Grealish. This is XGI per 90 for the season. We, of course, have their goals per 90, their XG per 90, their Opta assists, and I've got an asterisk there just because that will not include fantasy assists, so rebounded shots or those weird crosses that get awarded. So these will be lower. They will never be higher. They will be lower than the numbers we receive in fantasy. So worth keeping in mind there. We have the XA per 90 as well. Goals plus assists per 90. So we can see if someone's underperforming. But of course, again, important to remember the Opta assists aren't counted in that, but would be in obviously the returns here, I think. But either way, the XA won't quite add up to the same thing. And then we have the XGI, which is what it's ordered by. I've also just stuck a little thing there as well for post-World Cup goals and assists and XGI. So the left-hand side, all those first columns are the whole season. And then the right-hand side is post-World Cup, which is still a pretty snug, pretty little sample. But it's big enough. It's better than looking at last 4 or last 6, which I know Grealish has been great that period. But that is just, I don't know what we can take from that usefully that isn't kind of just a bit of guesswork. So I've tried to extend it a bit. Post-World Cup felt a bit better to me. And we do know that Grealish has become more comfortable in that team recently. So we should get a bit of flavour if he's improved.
Yeah. And actually, there's a lot to take from this in terms of, yes, these are the stats, but we've got to think about the fact that they have the fixtures moving forward as well. And obviously they've got the double. Whereas, you might be looking at an Arsenal player in here and thinking, oh, brilliant, but they don't have a double moving forward. What's your take on Grealish, Rich? Because, like I said, if you look here, he's obviously been much better post-World Cup. He's got 10 goals or assists since the World Cup, 0.58 XGI since the World Cup as well, which puts him comfortably kind of mid-place in here, kind of below players like Mahrez. Mahrez is brilliant for XGI per 90, isn't he? But below Mahrez, below Salah. Salah's incredible in this, by the way. KDB. You think he's a good pick?
It's been really useful looking at this, actually, because in my head, I thought I'd much rather have Mahrez or Foden if he was fit. However, to see Grealish, at least he's competing with Foden, maybe not as highly on the goal threat, because we talked about him before, haven't we? I think our impression of him is he's never going to be a player that's going to score, 15, 20 goals in a season. But if he's getting the minutes, and it sounds like Pep's trusting him. He gave him a hug when he came off the pitch the other week.
Yeah.
It seems like all the City predictors like Luke are confident, in his starts going forward, or as confident as they can be. I think I saw Luke say he expects him only to be benched once for the rest of the season. So I think while the minutes are there, I can definitely see the appeal. I wish it was Mahrez that was nailed, though. He's still, the stats back this up. He does have a better goal threat. He does seem to be, and that for that reason, he's a lot more explosive.
Yeah.
And he still has a better chance of being on penalties, if Haaland's not on the pitch, etc. I think Grealish seems like a fine pick. And I was surprised how cheap he was as well, because Seb mentioned him yesterday on WhatsApp, and I actually couldn't believe the price when I went on and checked. So I am tempted, but I think it does depend on your strategy.
I think a big thing with it is the minutes you've mentioned as well, though, which is Grealish on that left-hand side. We can move on to just comparison map-wise in a minute, but Foden's been out with appendicitis, right? But he, despite playing a lot of the season on the left, he has seemed to be more of an option for the right now, with Bernardo Silva not being considered there, but being considered in the midfield, even this sort of inverted role. So potentially, depending on how they line up, which is probably goes back to why Luke thinks Grealish is getting all the minutes, all the matches but one. Sorry,
All the minutes.
I think all the minutes, all your minutes belong to us. Grealish is probably the only left side option they realistically have at the moment. That could change at any moment, right? Foden could go back over there, but he's in form too, and we know Pep likes that. He likes picking players who are in a good rhythm, scoring. I was going to say points, scoring goals and assists.
Praz is in the chat, by the way. Praz, congrats on your Sky Sports appearance. Absolutely brilliant. We're all very proud of you. He says that Flappy is saying that, Grealish does have the X-hug factor as well. So, if he's getting a hug, that means he's going to be playing. So it's lovely. But the biggest thing for me that I really like about Grealish now is the fact this is his second season. If this was his first season still, I could really see him like going in and out still, like, oh, all of a sudden it looks like he's going to play loads and all of a sudden he's dropped. Like the fact this is his second season and it looks like he's earned the trust of the system and of Pep, and he's the one playing even though they have this massive change of system. I really like that for Grealish. This stinks of everybody gets really excited about a Man City player and then all of a sudden he gets dropped out of nowhere, and it happens every single time. And this isn't like could this happen again? No, it never will. This always happens. So Seb, what are the chances that he is just the latest person? Because Rich mentioned it before, Mahrez was the one. Mahrez, every season it seems like this happens with Mahrez, and then all of a sudden Mahrez gets dropped. What about Grealish? They've got Champions League. Why is he not going to play in Champions League and not in Premier League? What do you reckon?
I mean, I feel you. I think he's a good chance he gets both, right? That's what we were just saying. So in his first season, he still played a fair bit. He did get dropped a lot towards the end as well. But I think, they paid a lot of money for him and he was judged relative to that. Despite at Villa, he was the main man, but he still wasn't putting up stupid goals and assists or anything. At City, he's been very much bought as, Haaland was bought to put the ball in the net. He's been bought to fit into that system and very much play a piece of it, a big piece, right? 100 million is a lot of money. He's relatively young, especially when they bought him. There's a long time. They hope they can get something out of him. English as well factors into that. But he was used a lot even in a season when people thought he maybe wasn't playing that well. I think he might have had the best XA in the league last year, or chances created, one of those two. Not saying that means he deserved to be amazing, but it just shows that he wasn't miles off. Maybe a bit more fortune and he would be perceived more gracefully. This season, I think he's been a lot better. I don't think that's a surprise, especially more recently. And what we see away from FPL, and I think the reason Pep likes him so much is, that criticism he often gets, which is like, I wish he'd take someone on, I wish he'd drive forward more, or for FPL, right, have a shot, get into the box, whatever it is. But in real life, he brings that control, which is what Pep wants on the ball. Was it the RBL match, I think, where they were losing? I think it was RBL. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a match where they were losing and Pep made no subs. He did nothing. And his argument afterwards was that the players he had on the bench wouldn't have changed the game in the way he wanted. I think it was RBL, because the way they were playing were seriously messing, obviously not in the match that City destroyed them, the previous one. They were seriously messing with City's system, but not in a way that Pep could fix, because what he wanted to do is he wanted to bring more control to the match. And he said, I have my control players on the pitch already, of which Grealish is one. And that is what Pep really wants from his side a lot. Someone who will play the extra pass, who will hold the ball, we've heard that La Pausa before, and I don't know if I don't know if Grealish has that. He's referred to it, David Silva was the famous example. Foden doesn't have it, he mentioned. I think this is, someone in the chat said they drew. Thank you very much. Yeah, a match where you'd think they'd make subs to change it, but they didn't, because Pep had what he wanted on the field. Grealish brings a bit of that, right? He controls those matches and those positions and those matchups for Pep, allows the rest of the team to get forward. We see that, right? They hold possession in important positions, moving the ball around until they can get people into dangerous positions. And the way to then combat City is to try and hit them on the break, because they push everyone up, they leave two people back. And so away from FPL, I think that's one of the reasons Grealish, when he's playing well, and maybe why it's taken this year, right, for him to really get into that system and do that role that Pep wants of him. What we're now seeing in FPL as well is, of course, that what comes with that is goals, assists, and being in the team a bit more, which is what we want. So for me, yeah, sure, he might get dropped, we might all look stupid, but I think we've got a good chance, and that's all we can hope for.
Yeah, and when you've got Haaland up front, I mean, that second goal for Haaland, the cross wasn't amazing. It kind of was behind Haaland a little bit and a bit too high, but what does Haaland do? bicycle kick out of the air and, and slams it into the goal. So, I mean, Rich, is the biggest argument for getting Grealish just the fact it's going to be so easy for people? Like you said, he's cheaper than most people think. Rashford could be injured. Maddison plays for Leicester, who could have Nigel Pearson as their manager soon. Not Nigel Pearson, Dean Smith, sorry.
Yep.
It's so much of a muchness, isn't it? Is it just the fact that it's just easy to do and we want City for the double when most people are free hitting in 32 anyway? It just makes an awful lot of sense.
I think so. I think that's the impression I get. I mean, obviously, he looks like his minutes are the most nailed. So to then have an easy route, I think there was a lot of us that couldn't have done it very easily as well. So, I mean, it does make sense. It's the one thing that worries me with him is a bit like you were saying, that things could change by game week 34. It may not be that he's been dropped, but it could be there's some pattern emerging if they progress in the Champions League where, you know, more players are getting rested.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's such an amazing asset that I'd want to risk major rotation, if that makes sense. As in, I don't feel like it's... I think one of the arguments for Haaland at the weekend was even if he plays half an hour, he could get double digits.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Grealish is the same.
Yeah.
I almost sound a bit stupid saying that, but...
No, I know what you mean.
Like,
it's not... You've got to have those counter arguments for these kind of players, because I think a lot of people are just... Like, a lot of people were thinking about getting him in anyway, and let alone before this haul at the weekend. And now it's kind of, this is the latest bandwagon. Like, he's going to get a lot of people in because of Rashford's injury and because of how bad Maddison's been. And it's just kind of still having it in the back of your head saying, just because it makes the most sense doesn't mean it's definitely the move you should be making. But it does make a lot of sense, doesn't it?
I think it can get hyped up too much, can't it?
Yeah,
As in,
big time.
obviously he's come off a big haul, or a big haul for Grealish anyway.
Yeah.
And when you think about it logically, obviously mainly because of Haaland, but I don't think you would ever captain Grealish, even if, you know, say Haaland was injured.
Yeah.
You wouldn't captain Grealish. You'll bring in Alvarez and do that. So I'm saying he's not going to be like a top tier asset for his price.
Yeah.
But he could be a very, very good one. It does give a bit more argument to free hit in 34, so you can, you know, so that you can make the decision on the week.
I think it's the opposite. You want to free hit 34. I know you want to
free hit in 32, but I just stuff can change. By game week 34, we might not want Grealish, just like people didn't want De Bruyne when they brought him in early, and or Cancelo or Stones or Ake or Akanji. The list goes on.
Stones played in midfield again. Hooked in the 58th minute, wasn't he? And he was hooked, 0-pointer.
That was brutal. That was actually, if I didn't go for Haaland, I was looking at Stones.
Yeah, I might have done, you know, as that sort of, I needed to do -4 for Haaland. There's definitely a world where I did like Shaw to Stones and Kane to Haaland. Yes, I would have captained Haaland, but that would have looked a bit silly. I probably would have only just about broken even or something.
Yeah, that's the difficulty with them. So I think, he's a good asset, but I mean, if I couldn't get to him, I wouldn't be distraught, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, I think the main thing is because this became a topic for us. I think he's been an option anyway, especially with 34. But like you said, maybe you would wait. I think the reason this has become a topic for us is because Rashford is out, right? No one was losing Rashford anytime soon. This would have been like I don't know. Would you be going from Arsenal players if you have them to Grealish, or maybe a Fernandes? Obviously, he's got fixtures too. But I think this is because now we have a reason to find a midfielder. Before, Grealish was just a nice Man City double R option. And you could have done what you said, Rich, right? Wait until we knew he was viable. We may have to go early if Rashford is out. Andy, I see you've just moved the screen on here. So if you don't mind, I'll just quickly explain this as well. So this is our seasonal goals and assists per 90 versus our XGA for the season per 90. The former being orange, the latter in the blue. These are the players we just saw, the 14 before. As we can see, the actual output, goals and assists. Again, important to remember, assists, there's funny stuff there. And obviously this doesn't translate to points because some people are heavier in goals or assists, but this is a good way to compare, bulk players without me doing a 2-hour spreadsheet thing. So excuse me for not doing that. But we can see here, like a lot of people basically have overperformed. But that's what we want. That's what we want from our world-class, good FPL assets who are scoring the most points. By definition, they should overperform. Like the team that wins the league, they should be the luckiest because that's how you get lots of points. So someone like, Saka here, that's a pretty massive overperformance, but he's really good. Foden as well, and he's hurt me before. Rashford, looking similar there. And we've seen the last few weeks, the last match, of course, he put up some great numbers and didn't get anything. But we've seen the last few weeks him run a bit drier. Maybe that's just because he wasn't getting as many chances as as someone else would for those points. He was just doing very well with them. So if he came off that slight hot streak, a little step back would be expected, which is entirely fine. KDB, Salah, pretty much performing as expected. Maybe Salah's caught up a little bit recently. And then I'd love to just call out, because I'm all about this, our Messi Junior, McAllister, his XGI per 90, orange.
Where's that nickname come from?
Do you know what? Firstly, he's just really good, right? But he looks. Do you not think he looks like Messi? Give him Messi's beard. He looks like Messi.
Not massively.
No, not really. I mean,
So
when
it's
they wear the same
it's just
kit,
me.
yes.
Well, that helps, right? I'm a very simple man, right? They both play for Argentina.
I'm just wondering where this Messi Junior thing's come from. Like it's always been a thing.
No, well, I mean, if I'm honest, I thought I'd change this back before I sent you the slides, so I'm trying to style it out. This is just for me. Like, this is how I keep myself happy in the
No, I
afternoon.
like it. This is a new thing. This is like
Well,
Rich's
this-
goalkeepers. This will carry on now.
Good. Well, at least we're off Foden from last year.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, Messi Junior, McAllister, two people who are more sensible.
Dear.
A bit like Bruno Fernandes here, one of the few players who actually has a greater XGI per 90 than the goals and assists per 90. So I think it's well past getting Brighton midfielders. But just if we wanted some confirmation, March is there as well, and Matoma. Matoma looks like everyone else, right? He's performing better than his numbers, but we'd hope for that. And March is about par, which I guess if you compare to the other midfielders on this list, you maybe could call yourself unfortunate, because most of these players are overperforming. So that's what you were hoping for.
Yeah.
Anyway, I will leave that one alone for you there.
No, that's fine. And then pre and post World Cup. So these are the players that are what their XGI per 90 was like pre World Cup and then post World Cup. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly that. Similar to what we saw on the table, just a slightly nicer way of looking at it graphically.
Yeah.
KDB, Salah, just smashing it before and after, whatever. No one cares. Mahrez has got better. Arsenal players, some slightly worse. Odegaard, Martinelli's got better. Saka about the same, but maybe lower than you'd want. We've seen he's overperformed well. Brighton stand out massively, right? They're the big ones. McAllister there, March there, doing a lot better post than pre. And Grealish, I think Mahrez as well, if I remember. Yeah, Grealish and Mahrez, probably about a similar sort of uptick post World Cup. Now, of course, billion reasons for this. Maybe the fixtures have been better. Maybe it's just a luck thing. This doesn't say why. It just says what.
Yeah.
So we don't know if it will continue.
Yeah. By the way, Brian in the chat has just come up with a name that we can put on for McAllister for next week. Can it be McMessy, please? Does sound like
nice.
Does sound like one hell of a meal you can.
It sounds like what Rich did this morning at McDonald's, right after the wedding. Just
we don't want to know about that. We don't want to know.
Oh,
about
I didn't. Oh no, I didn't even mean that. That's
Before we started recording, Seb.
I didn't even. Andy,
Imagine that. That's
Let's move on to some heat maps.
That's the Scout only fans. That is. Anyway, moving on to slide 4. Rich getting McMessy.
Well,
so
I'm
this
gonna.
is Grealish and Mahrez's heat maps.
So this is my mic's just gone weird. This is just a Grealish versus Mahrez heat maps from the Liverpool match specifically, in which they won 4-1. You can see that this is from SofaScore. Opposite sides mirrored, but probably you would say, give or take, very similar looking maps here, which I think, to go back to what Rich was saying earlier, if you liked how Mahrez positions himself on the pitch, obviously without the penalties, Grealish is starting to look a little bit like that. Typically, I think what we've seen is Mahrez holding a little more, because this is one match here, so it could be situational. We've seen Mahrez hold a little more width than Grealish, but we know, not unlike maybe Salah, Mahrez will hold that width and then come inside. That's the whole point. If he has loads and loads of touches outside to stretch the pitch, that doesn't mean he wouldn't have important ones closer to the box, closer to where he wants him. But we're starting to see that from Grealish. We know Pep wants them both to hold the width, but it's can he get into the positions that are relevant for us in FPL? So with this sample size of one match, but if you check the others, the most recent match, it does look similar. I would say there's hope there.
Yeah,
Thus
I like
ends
it.
my Grealish propaganda.
No, I like it. I think, Rich, one thing I know you mentioned about Mahrez already. If Grealish and Mahrez were guaranteed the same amount of minutes from now until the end of the season, who would you rather own?
Oh, 100% Mahrez.
Yeah,
It's purely because of minutes that I think we're even considering going for Grealish. I mean, that's the whole thing with City midfielders full stop, though, isn't it? That's why Mahrez was such a good asset like a couple of months ago after the World Cup, because he was getting the minutes.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I think it's just supported by, all these tables that Seb's gone through as well. It has Mahrez, quite clear of Grealish if they were to have the same minutes.
Yeah.
Plus he's got, he can take some direct free kicks, which of course would be accounted for in these, but they'd be low XG. He's got a higher chance of taking penalties than Grealish as well.
Yeah.
I mean, from memory, I don't think Grealish took one in tournaments for England, for example. So
no, he didn't. He don't think
he didn't in the Italy
Villa,
game.
did he? Though when he
quite
was
famously.
Like
so probably one I'd need to look at a bit more. But my suspicion would be Mahrez is much higher up the pecking order. If there's the off chance of a penalty, not that I'm a big fan of penalties at the moment.
Yeah, you don't want another pen
taker. The opposite actually. Mahrez doesn't have a 100% record.
Yeah, keep him off.
I'd rather have Grealish. Yeah,
actually, that's a good. Oh yeah, I forgot Mahrez wasn't actually very good at penalties.
Guys, I don't know if you know, but you can lose points when they miss penalties. No one told me.
We'll let told Pep me Tony was good at penalties though. So.
Yeah, we'll let Pep know. We'll be like, do not put Grealish on penalties because he's in Rich's team. Oh, all right, yeah, I'll keep him off. Yeah, it's fine.
Just a couple of things from the chat to grab as well. Someone
don't want to get a McMessy again.
Oh, buddy. I didn't even. Never mind. We tag team that into an awful place. Drogba in the chat says it's minutes and price, presumably in favour of Grealish, that is. Just to say that Grealish is now 7. So unless you already had him, which in this conversation we're assuming you don't, because Rashford replacement, Mahrez is 7.3. So a little price, but nothing huge. I'd say that's the same bracket. I thought Mahrez was like 8 for some reason in my head.
For some reason, yeah.
And then we also have just how long till Foden is back. We're not sure, I think. We're probably taking it week by week. Obviously, we're recording this on Monday. Please do check at the end of the week. But as we mentioned earlier, this is, of course, speculation and this could change. But I think at the moment, Foden is preferred for the right over the left. He can do both. But if Foden is fit, I think there's a higher chance Mahrez misses out than Grealish.
Mahrez has typically been the Champions League guy as well, hasn't he? He's tended to play in Champions League, so it'd be interesting to see what happens. But we get to see the Bayern Munich game before we have to make our moves.
And so Foden can't do the thing. Now this could be for or against because Grealish will get Champions League, but Foden can't do the thing that Pep we mentioned once from Grealish, right? Which is controlling the game, slowing it down, finding the extra pass. Foden is much more the direct player, which is useful as well, but in different scenarios.
Yeah. Right.
Also, looking at all these as well,
Not right.
I just wanted to say, I know we'd already mentioned the Arsenal mids, but it does make them look a lot more appealing for me.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they haven't got the doubles coming up, but if you haven't got a chip, I'll just go straight to Saka or Martinelli if you don't have them already.
Yeah.
No, I think that actually shows quite clearly on here because you've got the guaranteed minutes as well.
Yeah. Like it. Right, moving on to our free hit 32 team. Now, the reason we've made this is Seb's draft that he's made for what his free hit 32 could look like. The reason we put this on here is for the people that aren't playing their free hit, what kind of players should they be thinking about bringing in Game Week 31? Because they're not going to be bringing in Man City players more than likely. If they do bring in a Grealish, if they do bring in a Grealish, it will be because they're already covered for Game Week 32, sorry. But if they aren't on a free hit, then obviously these are the kind of players they could be bringing in. If you are on a free hit 32, this is just kind of early planning as to what it's going to look like at the moment. So Seb, for all those listening that aren't on the stream, just talk us through what you've kind of made for us here for free hit 32, and then Rich is going to dissect it for you.
Oh, please do. So this is, I guess, I'm pretty sure I'm on 32 free hit, which I know is more on the fence. So I wonder if we can convince you, or quite the opposite.
Yeah.
But this is free hit 32 team with I think this left me with minus 0.1 in the bank, but it's an example. Got the Leicester duo of Ward and Everson in goal, so that's already fallen apart. Gabriel as our first of an Arsenal trio with Trent and Robertson, mostly because I don't know if Darwin, Jota, whoever will start, and I don't want to give a midfield spot to Hatpo. We have Trippier at the back, and then a Palace defender of choice. I went with Gahey here, but they're all a similar price, I believe. Saka and Martinelli to complete our Arsenal trio. I've gone Martinelli over Odegaard. I think it's close. Odegaard, better minutes. Martinelli, if you're happy with the minutes, better threat. We had, last time we spoke about free hits and wildcards, we had the same question. It's the exact same conversation. Whatever, do what you feel. Salah is in there, of course, as well to complete the Liverpool triple up. We have Maddison as our third Leicester representative, which doesn't feel smart. Andreas in there for Fulham. Obviously, Mitrovic will not be there, I believe. It would have been Vinicius up front if we wanted a striker. And then I have Solanke, Tony, and Harry Kane up front. Yeah. This, of course, would leave you with a sort of benching headache, if that's the right word. But as we've done with free hits in the past, the idea is to have a benching headache, right? Have some choices, show the options. Sure, go a bit, if you knew you weren't going to play, say, Maddison here, go a bit cheaper, put some money in elsewhere if you wanted a better goalkeeper, something like that.
Yeah. Right, Rich, get your surgeon's mask on, get your scalpel out, dissect this for us, please.
It's hard to dissect it. I mean, I have looked at a few free hit teams in 32, and they all look, I think a lot of it picks itself. You're going to have 3 Liverpool, you're going to have 3 Arsenal. And then there are a lot of players people have kicking around in their teams already. But I think that's kind of unavoidable at this stage. I think if you free hit 32, 34, 37, you're not going to gain that much over people that don't have it. That's my opinion anyway, just from playing around and looking at a few. I think it looks fine. Like, I did consider maybe Elise could be a fun punt, but obviously that might be the Reading bias in there as well.
3 assists at the weekend.
Palace didn't play at the weekend, if I remember right. I don't think Leeds at the weekend. I remember that very clearly. We did not play any football at the weekend. I remember that.
Leeds went 1-0 up, but I can't remember who they played against though. They must have won.
That was full. Yeah, no, that was full time. Yeah, we won 1-0.
Of course it was.
We're out of the relegation fight. It's fine.
But something like that could be fun, couldn't it? Potentially. I mean, a Palace player, maybe not, but yeah, I honestly, I don't have very strong opinions. I mean, would you bench Kane in this team, for example? Would be one question.
If you're going to bench him, you don't have him, right? Just that seems you must be able to do something with the money if you don't have him.
I don't think there's that many players to spend money on though with free hit 32.
Not. But if you don't have, I mean, maybe that's just a bit of price bias for me. But if you're picking Kane, you play him. I would think.
It's an interesting one. I was looking at people not using free hit, probably going to have Kane.
Yeah.
Then if you don't have him, this could risk your free hit getting a red arrow.
Who are you playing up front then? Is it like a Jota, a Darwin?
Jesus,
if you think one of them will
Jesus.
start. Oh yeah,
Jesus
do that.
could be a shout,
I like
yeah.
that actually. What would you drop? Drop Martinelli, Gabriel, Saka. Go back to the Arsenal club like we had at the beginning of the season.
No, I'd have Saka, Martinelli, and Jesus.
Okay, fine. Either way, yeah, fair.
Getting the right trio of Arsenal is going to be really, really tricky as well. Because you could even go double defence. You could have Gabriel and Zinchenko. Yeah. I know they're not keeping many clean sheets, but they do have attacking threat.
And neither are Liverpool.
That's I think set piece threat against West Ham, Gabriel. One at least is fine. Although Ben White will get the assist, he always seems to. So, but no, actually, I'd happily change that. I'd go Jesus. Yeah, Jesus over Kane, and then have a conversation with yourself over which Arsenal player you drop. I think that's a nice. And as you said, if you're trying to, well, not to rain on your parade there, Andy. If you're trying to get different with this team, that's a player we don't have, right?
Well.
Good segue.
If we,
because I was about to say
it's
not the most exciting week to free hit, but maybe Andy's going to prove.
Oh,
you
wait. You haven't seen Philip Billing in a
so
team
for people watching and listening as well, we hadn't seen each other's teams before this. I was tasked with being boring, and Andy was tasked with being exciting. So, and I did think beforehand, I was like, oh no, we're just going to pick the same thing. But apparently
we haven't.
Yeah.
I got messy with my team.
Hey.
So Rich is just shaking his head. So I was tasked with a bit of a differential team. Now, this is not me saying you have to pick this whole team. This is me saying if you want some differentials in your team for the free hit, you could pick one or two of these players. I also like the idea of if you are not on free hit in 32, you could pick one of these players, one of these cheaper, low-owned players for the run-in, which I quite like as well, especially those Crystal Palace boys, because they are cheap and their fixtures until the end of the season are ridiculous. So here is my free hit 32 differential team. So I've got Leno in goal, who's got Leeds at home, because Leeds is probably one of the easiest fixtures in the league now. I've got Zuma, who's playing against Bournemouth. I got Zuma, who's playing against Bournemouth. Obviously, he likes the odd goal, and Bournemouth maybe not so good from set pieces. Konate at the back against Forest at home, just because a lot of people are going to be going for Robertson and Trent. Konate could be a nice little player to put in there. This is a differential team, Seb. I could not go with Trent and Robertson. Stop shaking your head.
I liked it until then, and I was like, oh no, this is the I hate points team. No, I get
exactly.
it. Exactly.
The Totti at the back for Wolves. Then there's Willock in the middle. Elise could also go with Eze as well. Bowen, Billing, Solanke, Jesus, because it wasn't in Seb's team, and I think he will be a bit of a differential. Diogo Jota up front. Then Neto, Andreas Pereira, Guehi, and Suter on the bench. This is, I think, apart from Jesus, almost every player here was under 3% owned. So they are really considerable differentials. So many people in the chat are like, what is this team? My eyes. So Toz Dibs going, my eyes. This. I am not saying pick this whole team. I am saying this is a kind of culmination of all the kind of differentials you could have in a free hit team. Everybody complains every time we have a week like free hit 32 where every team is going to be exactly the same. Just pick one or two maybe players. They could even be on your bench, for God's sake. Just this is just a few players. Seb, do you like any of these players?
Yeah, I like Jesus, mate. That's a great shout.
Yeah, and that's it.
I'm done. Yeah, thanks.
Rich.
To be fair, I like
Seb,
forward
no,
line. I do.
moving on.
Yeah,
moving
fine,
on.
go.
Rich.
I like Leno. That's a good pick.
Yeah, brilliant.
No, I find it interesting. I think the ones I'd realistically consider are like Jesus, Solanke, Elise, and Leno.
I think Elise's a great shout. Elise or Eze. Like, I'd rather pick one of them than Maddison at the moment.
I can get that. that.
Yeah.
I mean, what it's missing, and I know this is really stupid, is the most obvious players. But by which I mean, this could still be like 6 players different to the one I just presented. And I know you're not presenting this as a whole team, but you could take 40-50% of this team, especially if Jesus is a part of it, and build it into the team I had and have something quite different, but still has like a Salah, a Trent, or whatever it is we think that are just going to be the highest potential scorers that week.
Yeah. I tell you now, Philip Billing has quietly had a really good season, and he's owned, I think he's owned by 0.5% of players. Like, he's had a really good season. Why not own him in free hit 32? Just go for it. Play
I think the problem there is you'll be going without someone like Martinelli, Saka, Salah.
Happy with that?
You're going for Billing. I don't know. I don't know if I can forgive myself.
Well, Aaron's from the chat just says Son. I think he says Son.
Do you know what? Initial reactions in the chat were, "Oh my god, what is this?" And now people are coming around to it. They're like, "Actually, there's some good players in this team." Yeah. Andy's a legend. I've seen that mentioned a few times as well.
Thanks for tuning into the Help Us Get Green Arrows part of our pod.
Seb, now obviously I know before you were just joking. It's not just Jesus you like in this team. Name me 1 or 2 others that you think actually they might go on a watch list somewhere for me.
Solanke, obviously, because. Yep, and I heard Totti was quite good, but mostly wearing a different colour in Italy a few years ago.
Yeah, cool, true. Captaincy, by the way, is it as easy as just saying it's going to be Salah or an Arsenal lad, or is there anybody else coming into your consideration, Seb?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if you get the Salah that was against, obviously very different game, but if you get the Salah that was against Arsenal, you stick the captain on him fine, don't you? Otherwise, I think Arsenal's fine too. Friday night game, maybe that just comes down to a bit of preference.
Yeah.
Yeah, either way.
Jerome Hughes, by the way, I'm going to follow you when I come off here. There's some good players in this team. Andy's a legend. Rich, captaincy, is that easy for you?
I think the only thing that could sway me off of Salah is if in the next game against Leeds there's a penalty and he doesn't take it, and even then I'll probably still captain Salah. I think.
Do we think that's a Do we think that's a possibility?
See, I
He's
don't.
missed 2 in a row.
That's my gut, but we don't know until we know. I'm not going to make decisions like selling Salah or not captaining him until I see otherwise. Unless you two are a bit more sceptical on it.
They're having a chat, aren't they? Apparently, Klopp has come out and said he's got to have a chat with him. Yeah,
I did see that quote.
But I mean, who wouldn't after 2?
What if,
he won't come off him. Surely,
because it's 2 in a row. So if say he gets say he scores his next day. Obviously, I know. The point is the chat would happen before that. That would be an 80% conversion rate, which is above the average. It is down for him. I think it was like mid-80s or something. But I guess it's because it's 2 in a row, right? Realistically, and the psychology comes into it, right? 2 in a row can lead to a complete, there's a lot of pressure on a penalty. But realistically, 2 in a row is no worse if he scored his previous 8 than, missing your 4th and your 9th one of a run of 10. And no one would have a chat in that scenario. So I'd be surprised. And it's not like it was a bad penalty, right? It was decently hit for just wide of the post.
He beat the keeper, technically. Just missed the goal.
To be fair, I could beat the keeper if we're allowed to just hoof it anywhere from a penalty. I don't think there's a chance of them losing it, but that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. I'm not sure who would take it instead.
Fabinho's the one that's been...
Oh, of course. I'm an idiot. Yeah,
Darwin hasn't missed one. I was reading. Trent could take...
But have you seen him try and hit a ball?
I'm surprised he's not missed a penalty. Having watched him play this season.
Has he taken any?
Oh, I'm just laughing at all the things in the chat going, Andy's cooking here. Let him cook, lads.
What's that quote? Don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Exactly. I'll tell you what, let's do a little thing. Look. So next week we'll mention it. Let's see which team gets more points. Seb's team that he brought up or this team that I brought up. Let's see what gets more points. In 2 weeks' time, yeah. We won't do any changes.
Do you want like a pint bet on it or something?
Yeah,
like at Gameweek 39 or Fest or something like that.
The funny thing about it is though, if Andy's team outscores Seb's, it means Andy's actual free hit team will have done.
Oh no, yeah, that's true.
And
I like this. Yeah, this is a win-win.
I don't like that. I don't like that. Right, lovely stuff. And chat, thank you so much for having my back. More than these two do. Right, that's what happens when you're, top of Scoutcast. Right, let's have a look at our teams then going into the weekend. So these are our best teams going into the weekend. I've got Kepa in goal, Zinchenko, Trippier and Estupinan, McAllister, Rashford, Mitoma and Saka, and then Watkins, Haaland as my captain and Kane up top. I'm expecting my strikers to do a lot of the damage again. Raya, Maddison, Botman and Shaw on the bench. Maddison, it's a tough one now. It's either going to be Rashford or Maddison that turns into Grealish. I'm waiting to hear the Rashford news, because if Rashford is out for a long time, I think it just makes sense to move him out for Grealish. If he's only out for 2 weeks, then I'm going to keep Rashford, move Maddison to Grealish, and then play Grealish and keep Rashford and Shaw for Gameweek 34, because obviously next week they wouldn't be playing anyway because they're injured. Then it's free hit, and then it's the double. So I'm hoping they could come back for the double. Shaw will be back for the double from everything I've heard, but Rashford, not so much. We'll see what happens there. I actually feel absolutely fine playing those Brighton lads against Chelsea away. Chelsea aren't offering much at the moment, so I feel fine playing all those. And apart from that, I feel like the kind of team picks itself a little bit, to be honest. Feel quite good having those two Arsenal boys against West Ham. I feel like that could be a little bit of a differential, because a lot of players sold their Arsenal boys. I know Rich is kind of pining after Saka a little bit. So I feel like this is fine, to be perfectly honest. Not a lot more I could do. Obviously, I'd be more than happy to have Rashford, but if he's out, he's out. Most probably going to be. So we'll see what happens.
Are you just rolling if Rashford is in?
No, I think Maddison would still go.
Oh, you can't roll 32 free hit.
Exactly.
That'd be stupid. Yeah,
it would be Maddison going, because I don't want Maddison after anyway. So Maddison's fixtures aren't horrendous after the blank, but Leicester are just so poor at the moment. But if I had to keep him, I would. But Maddison would go for Grealish, and then I'd probably bench McAllister.
So we should say, sorry to interrupt your team here, but we should say that no matter how many transfers you have this week, 1 or 2 or whatever, when you use a free hit, so in 32, you will only get 1 free transfer after it, even if you had 2 beforehand. It eats your spare transfer. So use them this week. Do not roll out of 31 into 32.
A lot of people, by the way, in the chat saying I'm playing Kepa against Triple Brighton here, which is true. It could be that I play Kepa instead of Raya, but play Raya instead of Kepa.
Are you set on free hit 32 then?
Yeah.
Because you've got 8 players that play in 32, and obviously if you did Rashford to someone else like Martinelli, you'd have 9 with the transfer to go.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense for me to get someone like Grealish, considering he's got the double after the free hit as well. And obviously I'd only have 1 transfer to use after the free hit. So I think using that to get Grealish in this week and then having Triple City for that double makes a lot more sense than kind of having 9-ish for the blank. And also I'm not a massive fan of free hit 34 in terms of what team I can get, because I'm going to have a lot of the players I want anyway. So yeah, I think I was. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have brought Haaland in last week. That was my thing. If I swerved Haaland, I would have done it for 2 weeks and then free hit in 34.
Yep,
but
makes sense.
I wanted Haaland. And I want Grealish now moving forward as well. So, Rich, moving on to your team. Talk us through it. Talk us through any moves you're thinking about.
Yep. So I've got Raya in goal, Gabriel and Zinchenko. It's a double Arsenal defence. Trippier, Salah vice captain, Bruno's away to Forest, McAllister and Mitoma, Haaland captain, Watkins and Tony. And then that's if Rashford's injured, because I've got Rashford on the bench here. Yeah. Now, I guess the only real dilemma is what I do with Rashford and when I'm going to be free hitting. I'm leaning more towards free hit 32, but I know every single week I've been delaying my decision. Bringing in Haaland for Kane obviously has pushed me a bit more towards that free hit 32.
Yeah.
If I free hit 32, I'll probably do something like Rashford to Grealish. If I delay the free hit, I could roll. Because I'm actually quite happy playing the 2 Brighton midfielders, so I'd actually be kind of happy to bench Rashford.
Yeah.
One dilemma I've got though is if I do end up free hitting 32 and want to keep Rashford, I'm going to have to do something really undesirable, like Tony down to Greenwood, just to free up some funds for after the free hit, or something like Pinnock to a Man United defender, or maybe to Dan Burn or someone.
Yeah.
Just to set me up with Newcastle players down the line towards the end of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? And obviously, you haven't got Kane either this week, which is it's Kane and Saka are the 2 you're missing the most, isn't it?
Yes, but then I've got Salah away to Leeds.
That's true.
as what we saw yesterday, Salah put up the highest XG. Leeds let in 5 goals. Sorry, Seb.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy having Salah. I feel like it's Salah against Kane. That's what a few people say. I've got Tony over Kane. That's not true. It's Salah. It's Salah over Kane, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can have Salah and Tony, or you can have Maddison and Kane, for example.
Yeah, Salah's nice there. I like that. Right, and Seb, moving on.
Well, it wasn't this week, was it?
Well, you got some points, more than Saka.
Think of the XG rank, man. That's what we really play for, right?
Yeah, apparently. Seb, talk us through your team.
My team is Kepa in goal. I have Trippier, Chilwell, an injured Shaw, Gabriel at the back, Salah with a vice captaincy, Fernandes, a maybe injured Rashford, and McAllister in the midfield. Kane captain, Watkins up front, and an interesting, I don't know if it'll end up like this, but some interesting benching decisions with Steele. I think that's fine. Tony, Matoma, and Botman. You could very easily play all 3 of those, but it's over who. Now, of course, I have Shaw and Rashford potentially injured, so there's some answers to that question. But I do have 2 free transfers. I have a little, like a smidge in the bank, might be like 0.2 or something. Now, if I'd done Kane to Haaland last week, fine, that'd be cool. I don't really want to do it now. Like, Kane's currently got my captaincy. Now, maybe that's just silly, because Haaland I still think is a better option this week. But I'd probably rather find a way of doing Tony to Haaland, which maybe means I need more, obviously, than just doing like a Rashford down to someone. I'd probably have to lose Fernandes. So I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what I'll do. Don't think it's a bad team, but it's got an interesting question, or 2 questions, benching and how to get Haaland to solve. There's a very real possibility, I don't know, I do Rashford to Grealish and don't get Haaland. If only because like I've got Tony on the bench right now, right? So I'd have to drop someone else. That's fine, of course. Haaland is better than anyone else in my team, probably. But captaincy on Kane is pretty comfy. So, yeah, I'm not sure, really.
What was it you said earlier? Don't interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake.
Exactly, mate. Exactly, yeah. Let me have my merry little way and complain about variants again next week, right? Just be better, Seb. Be better.
Do you know what, though? Like, this is one of the reasons why I got Haaland last week, was that all I kept thinking was, next week, I'm just going to be wanting to get him back in again, but I'm going to be wanting to get him back in for 1 week, and then obviously it's the blank game week. Because I was thinking about that. Yeah, well, yeah, but that was when I was thinking, do I free hit? And it was like, and I was just thinking, I'm just going to be left with this same decision next week. But I suppose you got 2 free transfers. If you need to move those funds, is it Bruno you're thinking could, go down?
Yeah, I mean, if I could afford I don't think I can afford Saka, but if I could afford another Arsenal midfielder, maybe that'd be tempting. Because as A Dawson, one of the many Dawsons, just one of them, A Dawson, says in the chat, no Arsenal attack. Yeah, you're right, man. That's pretty scary. But I don't think there's a sensible way of doing it without combining it with Haaland. So, that's fair enough. I did Saka to Salah with that last minute team news. I would have had Saka otherwise. Yeah. I think, Salah hasn't paid off handsomely so far, but given how close he's come, I can't hate that move at all. So, this is just one of the costs of that.
And
it's similar to the dilemma to the one I had. And it's partly why because Andy, you at least could do Tony to Haaland, whereas I was in the Seb's position where, I could do it for free. Yeah. And I was thinking, if I don't do Kane to Haaland last week, I'll be sat here this week and I'll probably do it anyway. Yeah. And it feels a lot more wrong doing it when Kane has Bournemouth at home.
I think I need to find a way of making it be Tony, right? Because Pete again says in the chat, Haaland will mess last rap. I agree, man. Like I think Haaland will outscore Kane. So even though I've got Kane with the captaincy, my priority move should be Haaland, and I agree. But I think if I'm taking out my second best player to get the best player, that is an upgrade, but maybe I can find a better way with a more net positive difference in points. So I'd probably be doing Tony, I think, which then obviously requires another move. Yeah, sorry, Rich.
So sorry, I was because one way I looked at is I could have downgraded Bruno, for example, so that I can have the Kane, Haaland, Watkins front line that seems to be really popular.
Yeah.
What I then started thinking was I don't actually want Kane that much longer. As in, I'd want him for this game week. I probably won't have him in my free hit, but I can decide. And then he'd be my cash cow to get to other assets like Trent, for example, or Robertson.
It's what I'm doing. So in 33 I'm hopefully rolling, and then in 34 it'd be Kane down to Ferguson and one of the Brighton mids up to Salah, I would have thought. And that's the one thing I'm looking at your 2 team and thinking, you both got Salah already. We're all going to be moving to Salah after the blank in 33 or 34. And you've already got him. Like
it's only a shame we don't have anything in the bank for it, really, right? It would have been nice if we had a few more points, because now everyone will have him. It's not really different.
That's why I was so annoyed about it, because it was a big swing when players like Tony and Salah are very lowly owned, just out of nowhere, really.
Yeah.
I mean, Fernandes? Yeah, Kane and Fernandes play each other in 33, so I think like that's Spurs at home, I think. So like marginally, Kane is better there, maybe, if only because of Fernandez's positioning. But
you're going to bring
both
in...
are fine this week. It's need. I've got 2 free transfers. It's needing the money to get Haaland, right? So I'm sacrificing someone. Fernandez then has the further doubles in the future. If Shaw is out for a while too, I don't want to end up in a situation where all I've got is Rashford from Man United and I'm having to claw back further
Shaw's
transfers to
out,
get
Bruno's
back
on
on
more
Man
set
United.
pieces.
Yeah. So one of the things I feel like I've been doing, sorry to dwell on my team so much here, but one of the things I feel like I've been doing for a while, which I talked about earlier, how maybe I thought I was unlucky this week. What I'm going to say is just bad planning from me. I feel like for quite a while I've been playing slight catch up with transfers. And if I put myself in a position where I just have Rashford with an unknown injury going forwards, and then I want triple Man United again, that's 2 transfers to get Man United players, where other people who will have Fernandez might have De Gea, can focus those transfers on other players, and they will set themselves, just a further move ahead of me again. So while the season's coming to a close, there's not that long left. I maybe don't want to set myself too far back for future planning, I think.
By the way, as well, in terms of United for that double, if Shaw is back, obviously people will own him. If Rashford's still out, Bruno Fernandes is basically playing in front of the back 4 at the moment as like a quarterback role. I have no idea who I'd want to own. And that's as a United fan. I've literally got no idea which United assets I'd want to own for that double game week.
I'm envious of De Gea owners. I think that's a nice pick.
I mean, but then like it's De Gea and Shaw, and you're going for the defense. Attacking wise, I've got no idea. Do you go Sancho? Yeah. Do you go like Weghorst in and out, Martial's in and out? Like it's just an absolute minefield if Rashford, because Rashford's so simple.
I guess if Rashford is out, Martial probably plays, but firstly injuries, and secondly our forward positions are set, right? We're happy with our forwards.
Double game week for Martial. If you can guarantee he's going to get more than 100 minutes, then I think you've done quite well. But it's really, really tough moving forward. We'll see what happens.
Fran says it's Robert Sanchez's fault, and
oh yeah, it is.
That's
it kind
what
of
set
is.
us back, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I changed my mind. It's not my bad planning. It is, by the way, but it's totally Sanchez.
Yeah.
I mean, Rich is in a better position, and we had the same problem to solve. So it clearly is also my fault.
Yeah. All right, boys. Yeah. Jeez. Right, moving on to the community.
Did I mention
team.
I was playing for XG? I think it's
every week. Seb, talk us through the community team and where they are in the league and overall rank wise, and let's see in the chat if people are beating it.
So, and I thought of something. When they beat me. So they got 64 points this week because they did the smart move of Tony to Haaland. I think they had money in the bank for it as well, so it was just a straight swap, which is beautiful. Especially, at one point, Tony had a goal disallowed, missed a penalty, then scored a penalty. At one point, probably looked a bit harsh, but quite the opposite. Haaland captain did brilliant. 64 with Kepa, Trippier, Shah, Henry, Saka, Rashford, Matoma, Fernandes, Kane, Watkins, Haaland. Nice team. March on the bench played Matoma instead. That's unfortunate, but flip of coin. Raya, Estupinian, and Shaw join March on the bench. They are 27,239th overall, which beats all of us comfortably and isn't far behind Joe. I think is about 11k. He got a grey arrow this week, by the way. He's doing really well.
Did he?
Yeah. Literally a grey arrow. And in the Scoutcasters, not Scoutcast League, sorry, they're second there, of course, behind Joe. In the Scoutcast Community League, they are 53rd. And I was just thinking this for me because Andy, I think you can top this team, and Rich, before tonight, I thought you were ahead of me, and I think you're in a better position, as we just discussed, than me, despite, 5k is probably like 2 points. So if this team, for me, you can join or not, if this team does beat me, we've been talking about what would happen. Anyone who's contributed to this team on Twitter, which we can verify over the season, we'll pick 1-2 people, something like that, and I will get you tickets to Gameweek 39 or Fest, the one of your choice, and I'll grab you a drink or something, right? So if this team beats me, I will grab a couple of managers, one manager, whatever it works out, sensible, who has contributed to this team over the season, and I'll make sure you get into 39 or Fest, buy a ticket, buy a drink.
Nice.
Rich and I have contributed to this team.
Oh yeah. This is just I
almost missed my own transfers for this team.
Yeah. Well, mate, my Saturday
Pope.
Morning every week.
Yeah.
Captain Pope the wrong week. Yeah. Nice this week.
Man. Yeah. If I hadn't done that, I need to work that out at the end of the season, because there was one time it benefited us where I think we missed something and it went fine, and the other one was where I left it on Pope, and it did. We had like triple Newcastle defense. We had Pope, and it did cost us. Haaland scored, Pope conceded. There's every chance this will be closer to 10k. I need to work that out when we get to the end.
Ooh. So, by the way, there is a little bit of a sneak preview there as well. I think for the first time ever, all the Scoutcast hosts will be at Fest. So I think we're all going to be there, which is really exciting. I cannot wait to hug Seb. I cannot wait to hug Seb. I've seen Rich loads of times in real life, and I've hugged him loads of times, but Seb's going to be there. So I'm just going to touch his face a few times.
You have to bend down, mate. I'm not ready. But it's only because
we're getting McMessy.
Don't do something don't do a McMessy again. Don't do it, Andy. Don't do it. I don't want to press the not for kids button on YouTube.
Lovely stuff.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. FPL Team Peter's in the chat, by the way, saying, will you buy me a beer before kickoff of Gameweek 39? Yeah, we will. If you're at Fest, mate, because we use your screenshots most weeks. Right, moving on to our question time now then. So if anybody's got a question, chuck it into the chat and we'll answer as many as possible. We are doing incredibly well for time. It's only 9:10. We're doing really well. So chuck your questions in and we'll see how many we can answer. Seb and Rich have been instructed to make sure their questions are nice and short again. They've been pretty good recently though, so I think they'll be all right. FPL Soccer Crazy says, I know I shouldn't say this, but Scoutcast is really good with you three on. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Imtiaz says, currently on wildcard 31 with no free hit. Can you pick 3 of your top picks from these teams? So that's quite involved. So I'll just go with, who would be your top 3 picks to pick now on a wild card if you didn't have a free hit for 32?
I'm looking at Seb's face as well.
So I think so sorry, this can't be a short answer, really, can it? Watch other content during this week as well, because there's so much to cover that we haven't. Go back, look at the free hit team we put together, and then our teams, because it's somewhere in between those two. You probably need Saka, Salah, Haaland sounds stupidly obvious, right? But you need access to Liverpool, Arsenal, and City. The former 2 for 32, and the other one, obviously, for non-32. Your problem is going to be juggling that, but that's my answer.
Yeah, nice. Rich?
Yeah, the Liverpool ones really stand out to me, and like Seb said, the Arsenal ones as well. They seem to be the foundation. I guess Newcastle defenders are always going to be, very good for the end of the season, and get your goalkeeper rotation right.
Yeah. I would want, if I was wildcarded now, drink. If I was on wildcard now, I would 100% have a Crystal Palace player in there as well. It's somewhere, because genuinely, look at their fixtures if you haven't already. They are ridiculous till the end of the season. FPL Spartan.
It's going to be hard to play them though.
Oh, it will, but I'd have one. I'd 100% have one.
Oh, and Brighton. Obviously.
Oh, yeah, Brighton, yeah. There's a few. Yeah. FPL Spartan says, if Shaw is out long term, who are your replacements? Rich?
I've been really struggling. When I've looked at defenders, there's not many around at the moment. I'd still say the Newcastle guys, even if you've got 2, they could be decent. I looked at Man United defenders, but do you want to block a spot for Shaw? It's really hard to know. I'd say Newcastle defenders, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Seb?
City, Stones or Ake. And I will plug, go listen to Burning Questions. I hope they cover defenders, but I suspect they will. So please go listen to Burning Questions later this week. Yeah. They will look at that. That's one of the things we focus on midfielders.
Yeah. I would say, although they don't have the doubles, I'd say Villa. Look at Villa defenders like Mings and Moreno, players like that. Done very well recently. Sorry, there we go. Aston Villa Bozzy says, yeah, I have a question. Why do you all hate Villa players after 6 wins and 1 draw in the last 7 games?
Andy nearly captained Watkins.
Yeah, I did.
Andy nearly captained Watkins.
I just mentioned Mings as well, and Moreno. We don't.
And
hate
you said
Villa.
to captain Watkins last week.
I did. Yeah, and he did better than Rashford. Yeah. David Hughes says, thoughts on Danny Ings to Greenwood to free up funds for after free hit 32. Seb?
Yeah, that's fine, but Greenwood isn't getting football, so I hope that's on your bench.
Yeah, Ferguson would be better, wouldn't he?
Yeah, probably better. Although then you block a Brighton spot, which I think is a bad idea.
Right. And Rich?
Yeah, I like that, especially with Ings. I mentioned I might have to do it with Tony, even though I don't want to lose Tony, just because I need to use a transfer this week if I free hit 32. So it makes sense to at least get some money out.
Yeah. Rich, Salah or KDB for the rest of the season? I mean, I'm asking the wrong person, aren't I?
Well, with either of us, really.
Yeah.
Is it worth answering Salah?
Yeah. Seb?
Salah.
Yeah. Fun says, who to captain? I have no Haaland, but I have Kane, Elise, Martinelli, Saka, and KDB. Seb?
Harry Kane.
Yeah. Rich?
Was it as no Haaland? I'd captain Salah. Did he have Salah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he didn't say Salah.
Oh, Kane then.
Okay. Jason Brunning says, I've just brought Martinelli for Maddison. Should I have gone for Grealish? Rich?
No, I think buying Martinelli's fine, especially if you're not free hitting next week.
Yeah, like it. Seb?
Yeah, what Rich said. I'm slightly hotter on Grealish, but it's going to be team dependent.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Got a few more. Joe Nicholson, and this is a good one for Seb because obviously he owns him as well. Sell or hold Chilwell?
Oh, we were talking about this earlier. So I think Chilwell's fine. You've been unfortunate so far, and going forward, he'll still be fine. Fixtures do get a little tougher in the medium term than a nice end to the season. I might be selling. If Shaw turns out to be fit, it would be like a Chilwell to a City defender. But this is just prep for fixtures and like doubles, not because I think Chilwell is bad. So you have to then answer that question yourself.
Yeah. Rich?
What Seb said. I think, like I said before, there's not many good options to look at the moment because players like Shaw, we don't know what's going on with them.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
I definitely wouldn't be buying, for example.
Yeah. Will Wood says, Rashford to Eze or Elise? Who do you prefer, Eze or Elise? Chris? Rich?
Elise, definitely.
Yeah. Seb?
I'm going to say Elise. I can't remember off the top of my head, but both look wonderful on the pitch. But I think Elise has considerably more threat when you look at the numbers. And also set pieces, right? Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. And Elliot Hook says, which Man City defender would you go for, Seb?
Yeah, I mean Edison, isn't it? It's always Edison. But defender, that sub for Stones was harsh because I would have said him. Maybe Ake. I'd maybe, because if Stones had stayed on for 4 minutes longer, it would feel so much sweeter. But in terms of X-Mins, it would be no different, right?
Yeah.
It would still be an early sub. I want to say John Stones, but follow Luke Dis on Twitter and see what he says. If you can get Edison, that's a good shout.
Yeah. Rich?
Probably Ake. There were some pretty positive comments from Pep I saw shared on Twitter the other day. I think the only thing with that was, and I'm paraphrasing it, was that he's undroppable.
Yeah.
But does that then mean he's prioritised for the Champions League?
He said this before as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I got spooked by the John Stones substitution as well.
Just whatever you do, don't go for Carl Walker, because he basically came out one night and said, I love Carl, but he doesn't suit this system. And when he came on the other day, it was like him trying to work out where he was supposed to be playing was brilliant.
Yeah. And didn't he come on for Stones?
Yeah, he did. He came on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, bless him. I wouldn't be going for Carl Walker. Right, lovely stuff.
Just to say, if money's fine there, Ruben Dias probably gets the most minutes, right? But I think we're looking a little cheaper.
Yeah. Chat, thank you so much. You've been fantastic tonight. Really enjoyed the chat's input on our little stream. Thank you so much for joining us. Rich, thank you so much for being a guest on our show again tonight, obviously. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm going to go straight to bed, to be honest. Yeah. I've had a lot of fun.
Don't blame you. And Seb, thank you so much for joining us as well, my man.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us. This has been fun, even if, not safe for work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
There's
been a few references tonight. Yeah, mainly by me. Sorry, but thank you so much, everybody that's listened after the fact or has listened during it. We peaked at about 600 listeners, so thank you so much. Good luck this week. Obviously, there is Champions League. There's lots of injury reports. Do not go early, even if I think Grealish is going up tonight. Apparently, I still wouldn't move early. I would wait and see what happens because a lot could change in the next 4 to 5 days. Thank you so much. So I hope your arrows are green next week, and we will see you next Monday. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.